When it comes to personalities, it isn't simply just knowing how personalities operate, but also learning how to spot them. Being able to spot a personality and know the type of person you're dealing with is an extremely useful skill. And the better you are at it, the more knowledge you can gain from less information. Being able to read a person and understand key concepts about them from smaller things that people would normally overlook is an essential skill. But it is very dangerous if you do it wrong, because you could end up drawing conclusions that are simply incorrect. But like any other skill, it is a process that you get better at with time. But let's discuss the first and most important thing before you even begin, which is to understand the personalities, to study these things. And I mean studying by taking lectures or reading books on psychology or personalities. This is an essential thing to do. And the concept simply is that an action represents a personality trait or an archetype. Now, it goes back to exactly what I said at the first part, which is to understand psychology. Then you can reference back to an action and understand what that action indicates. Once you understand this, actions become symbolic in nature. Symbolic meaning they are symbols for something much deeper. It could be that I draw a house with a triangle and a few squares. Well, you would look at that and you would say, this is a house. But in actuality, it is not a house. It is symbolic for a house. It is a drawing. It is a few lines. That's all it is. It is no house, but you know that it means a house. You know what is conveyed by it. You know that it is a symbol. This is the mindset you must have. You must be constantly looking out for symbols and signs for what it means. So the next time you see a person do an action, you ask yourself, what is this symbolic for? What does this sign or symbol represent? It could be that they are more pushy than a person. What does that indicate? That indicates that they are more disagreeable. It could be that they're harder working than other people. That means they're more conscientious. It could be that they're much more the daydreamer type. Well, that means they're much more likely to be higher in openness. You understand what these actions indicate. Otherwise, it could be that you overlook them entirely. It could be that you cut down a tree, but then you look inside of the tree. What do you see? You see tons of circles, but at the end of the day, they mean nothing to you. These lines, they're irrelevant. It could be just interesting little details added to the tree. But to a person who is knowledgeable, they understand how old the tree is from that, or at least get a general idea of it. We also continue to observe them for quite some time. It could be that they are an outgoing, extroverted person, but in many cases that they are not so outgoing and extroverted. It could be that the crowds just become too much for them to handle, even though they are technically speaking an extrovert. This adds dimension. Now we no longer only know that they are an extrovert, but where they land percentile-wise, where they are more specifically. We narrow it down. We add more detail to this vague image we have of them. We understand them as an archetype at first, but then we add dimension and detail to those archetypes with personality traits. It is not simply black and white. There is a fine line between the two, but there is also gray that exists between, and we can understand where they exactly line up. You simply add more and more detail, and you use this with other personality traits. But not every little action is clarified or talked about as much, so you would have to do a little bit of meditation. When you see an action that you are uncertain about, you would meditate on it and try and figure out what it indicates. What personality trait does it mean? What does it say about the person in question? It is not always so obvious. And once you understand it that one time, once you have that realization, which may take a bit of time, you'll know it for the next person, and it becomes much easier. You'll see it in another person and instantly know what it means, what type of animal you are dealing with. It is no different than Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes loves to look around and pay attention to detail, but it's not at random. He is looking for different signs, different clues, and once he spots the clues, he can understand what it represents, what is significant about it. And that is exactly what you do with people and personalities. And you investigate and pay attention to the actions to see what they are symbolic for, what they symbolize about the person as a whole. And that is how you spot personalities and add depth. But we also have to understand that people can fake who they are, and it could be that you're being fooled and you don't actually understand a person. But I also have a solution to this, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on it. It's going to be a very good video. I will also be making more animations because the last one did very well, and it was very enjoyable to make, and there are just so many good classic fables, so be sure to stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, be sure to leave it down below, and if it's really good, I'll actually make a whole video on it. I really appreciate it, my friends. Take care.